The coffee shop was filled with the usual Manhattan morning buzz, murmurs, caffeine-driven urgency, and the high heels of executives clicking across polished concrete. But none of that noise could drown out the sound of the cashier's impatient voice. "Card declined again, ma'am. Do you have another one?" Camila Santos inhaled slowly, her perfectly shaped eyebrows arching just slightly. At 35, she had mastered the art of calm under fire. But this wasn't fire. This was friction. Tiny, ignoble, sharp. She didn't blush. She didn't panic. She simply reached into her designer bag, a relic of a life she no longer lived, and handed over a second card. Also declined. Behind her, someone snorted. She turned slightly, not fully, just enough to acknowledge the sound. A tall man in a navy Tom Ford suit leaned casually against the counter, pretending not to watch, but clearly reveling in her moment of discomfort. That's when the voice came. His voice. "Hey, cashier, just put her coffee on my tab." Camila turned, and every molecule in her body tensed. Daniel Kirkwood. His hair was still perfectly parted, silver and smug. His watch, a Patek Philippe worth more than a car, glinted under the ceiling light as he raised it toward the contactless reader. His smile was generous, noble, condescending. "Come on," he said, the grin widening. "It's just coffee. $5.80 won't break me." The reader beeped. Payment approved. Camila took the coffee wordlessly, her fingers brushing the warm cup like it was made of glass. "Thank you," she whispered, not with gratitude, but with precision, like a chess player saying, "Check." Daniel was already walking away, toward the VIP section where hedge fund gods and tech giants sipped oat milk lattes behind frosted glass walls. He didn't look back. Why would he? To him, she was just a woman in trouble, a nameless inconvenience with canceled cards and too much pride. A story to tell his colleagues later. "I helped this poor lady this morning, paid for her coffee. People are really struggling out there." What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that 6 months ago, he had stood in front of the Kirkwood Industries boardroom, the same board where Camila once sat, and said, "Camila, sweetheart, we appreciate your unique perspective, but perhaps it's time to explore opportunities more aligned with your cultural background." He had said it like he was doing her a favor. He had fired her under the guise of restructuring, knowing damn well she had authored the very strategy that saved the company from collapse, a strategy he would later present as his own. She had walked out of that building without a title, a severance, or even a goodbye. But she had walked out with something far more valuable, a blueprint. As Camila exited the cafe, the crisp air of lower Manhattan kissed her face like a whisper from fate. Her fingers tightened around the coffee cup. Inside her purse, nestled between her wallet and a tube of lipstick, was a heavy envelope. Inside the envelope were investor signatures, operating agreements, and seed capital commitments. Genesis Capital was real now. 6 months of secrecy. 6 months of assembling the fallen, those talented, brilliant, underestimated outcasts Daniel Kirkwood had discarded over the years. She stopped at the curb and turned back toward the glass walls of the cafe. Daniel was typing furiously on his phone, surrounded by ego and silence. He had no idea. Not yet. Camila didn't sleep that night. Not because she was restless. No, restlessness was a luxury she'd shed months ago. She stayed awake because the hour was near. And the kind of war she was waging required clarity, precision, and ruthlessness sharpened like a scalpel. On her desk sat a folder marked with a single word in gold foil: Genesis. It had started as an idea in a notebook. Now it was a fully registered strategic consulting firm with a multi-million-dollar valuation, backed by investors who hadn't even blinked once they saw the talent she had gathered. 15 former Kirkwood employees. Not just employees, survivors. Survivors of Daniel Kirkwood's empire of smiles and daggers. Patricia Morales, once marketing director, let go after raising questions about pay disparity. Marcus Chun, former head of IT, fired for having too many unconventional ideas. In reality, for being smarter than his boss. David Park, legal counsel who saw too much and said too little, until now. Each of them had a story. Each carried proof, and Camila had turned their scars into weapons. Her phone buzzed at 3:12 a.m. Marcus, meeting confirmed. Got something you're going to love. 5 years of email backups, including the ones Daniel deleted. Camila stared at the screen, her fingers motionless. Deleted. Fools like Daniel always assumed pressing delete erased history. But Marcus was a ghost in the machine. He had cloned every internal server the day before he was fired for cultural mismatch. Camila typed 2 words in response: show everything. By noon the next day, the war room on the 23rd floor of a nondescript building in the financial district buzzed with energy. The oval table was surrounded by people once told they didn't belong, now sitting in designer suits, their resumes dripping with brilliance. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus said, his laptop glowing with vengeance, "let me show you what Daniel Kirkwood really thinks of all of us." He clicked. The projector lit up. Dozens of email threads poured down the screen, headers, dates, names, subject lines. And then the content. Too much diversity is diluting our company culture. Camila's ideas are solid, but we need someone more traditionally aligned to present them. Let's quietly rotate out the high-risk hires. Start with the ones who challenge too much. The room darkened, not because of the light, but because truth, when finally revealed, comes with gravity. Camila didn't flinch. She had read these before. She had memorized them. But it was the final slide that quieted even the fiercest among them. A message from Daniel, dated 2 years ago. If we implement Camila's strategy now, I'll get board approval for a 7-figure bonus. But make sure she doesn't get credit. Say it's a collaborative effort. Patricia's jaw clenched. Marcus whispered. He actually put that in writing. David Park leaned forward. Do you realize this isn't just unethical? This is grounds for a federal investigation. Camila spoke softly. And that's exactly the plan. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city that had once turned its back on her. You know what the dumbest part of all this is? She asked without turning. Marcus blinked. What? She turned and smiled, the kind of smile that burns in silence. Yesterday, he paid for my coffee. $5.80. Thought he was being generous. Didn't even recognize me. Patricia gasped. Wait, he doesn't know who you are anymore? He thinks I'm just another black woman down on her luck. Another sob story he can brag about saving. He has no idea he funded his own downfall with a latte. Laughter bubbled through the room, but it wasn't joy. It was justice brewing. David Park flipped through the documents again. So, what now? Camila's eyes sharpened. We do what Daniel never thought we could. We build better, stronger, smarter. And then, she opened a manila folder, Amanda Foster's email. Amanda had been Daniel's executive assistant for 5 years, a ghost in the boardroom, invisible to the powerful, and invaluable to Camila. She had been secretly feeding Camila internal updates, trends, weaknesses, and finally, the golden ticket. Daniel is looking for a consulting firm to help fix the company. He mentioned being inspired by a young black entrepreneur he met yesterday. Camila passed around copies of the email. He thinks we're his salvation. Marcus stared. So, We're about to be hired by Kirkwood? Camila nodded. Patricia grinned. The doors to Kirkwood Industries' 23rd floor boardroom opened at precisely 2:59 p.m. Camila Santos entered with the poise of a diplomat and the chill of a storm cloud. She wore a tailored navy blazer with razor-sharp lapels, her hair pinned back, her stride unhurried. A single leather briefcase swung from her hand like a silent weapon. Daniel Kirkwood rose from his seat at the head of the table, arms outstretched as if welcoming royalty. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet the future of Kirkwood Industries," he announced with dramatic flair. "This is Camila Santos, CEO of Genesis Capital, a brilliant entrepreneur I had the pleasure of meeting yesterday morning." Camila gave a slight nod. The boardroom, packed with 12 executives and 3 business journalists, regarded her with mild curiosity, not recognition. To them, she was a rising consultant, a nobody with a rising trajectory. Perfect. Daniel gestured gallantly. "Camila, the floor is yours. We're eager to hear your solutions." She placed her briefcase gently on the polished table and opened it, pulling out a single laptop. Calmly, she connected it to the projector. The screen flickered to life. Her first slide read, "6 months to collapse, the hidden truth behind Kirkwood Industries." Daniel laughed awkwardly. "Bold title." She looked directly at him. "Truth usually is." The room quieted. Camila stepped forward, voice firm and serene. "In the last 18 months, Kirkwood has lost $52 million in contracts, deals that were once considered untouchable." She clicked. A pie chart emerged, slicing the revenue loss by quarter. "This isn't bad luck, it's bad leadership. Poor decisions masked by arrogance, nepotism hiding behind the word tradition." Several executives shifted uncomfortably. One cleared his throat. Daniel forced a chuckle. "Camila, let's not overdramatize. Some of these issues aren't just issues, they're time bombs." Another click. An audio file began to play. Daniel's voice, clear and smug, filled the room. "Between us, we know our team lacks diversity, but that means less drama, more productivity." The boardroom froze. Journalists stared wide-eyed. Executives paled. Daniel shot up. "Where the hell did you get that recording?" Camila didn't blink. "You remember Marcus Chun, your former IT director?" Silence. "He backed up every server before you fired him." She let the words sink. "This is just the beginning." The presentation spiraled into revelation after revelation. Emails detailing Daniel's private plans to cleanse departments with too much activism. Documents showing fake diversity figures on federal contract bids. Meeting recordings where female employees were mocked behind closed doors. Daniel turned ghost white. Sweat beaded at his hairline. Camila clicked again. "This," she said, gesturing to the screen, "is the original strategic proposal that saved Kirkwood Industries from bankruptcy 2 years ago. It increased your revenue, tripled your profits, earned you a $5 million bonus." She paused. "And it was written entirely by me, the person you fired 3 weeks later for being—" what was the term? She scrolled through a recovered email and read aloud. "Too assertive for a woman in her position." Gasps scattered through the room like broken glass. Daniel's voice cracked. Who are you?" She slowly smiled. "You don't remember?" She leaned forward. "I'm the woman you paid $5.80 for yesterday. The woman you once called sweetheart in boardrooms and diversity hire behind closed doors." The silence was suffocating. "I'm the one you thought would stay down." One of the journalists finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "Miss Santos, what does this mean for Kirkwood Industries?" She turned to him. "It means," she said coldly, "that arrogance has a price." By the time Daniel stumbled out of the boardroom, the walls of Kirkwood Industries were already shaking. Outside, 3 journalists were on their phones, speaking in rapid, urgent tones to newsroom editors. A junior executive stood frozen in the hallway, his face ghostly white as he stared at his screen. His stock trading app showed a red tidal wave, KRKW down 19% in minutes, halted for volatility. The fall had begun. Daniel barely made it to his office before collapsing into the Italian leather chair that once made him feel invincible. Now it felt like a throne of thorns. He stared at his reflection in the office window, the expensive suit, the graying temples, the eyes filled with disbelief. How could this happen? How could she do this? The answer, of course, was obvious. He had taught her how. All these years, he had trained her to think like a predator. She just happened to learn faster and bite harder. Meanwhile, across Manhattan, Camila was seated at Genesis Capital headquarters, an elegant corner office overlooking the skyline she once wandered like a ghost. The Genesis team had assembled in their glass-walled war room, watching the aftermath unfold in real time. Marcus's laptop was connected to a massive screen streaming live financial news. Shares of Kirkwood Industries continued to plummet following shocking revelations exposed by strategic consulting firm Genesis Capital. Allegations include diversity fraud, workplace discrimination, and strategic theft. Patricia Morales sipped her espresso, eyes never leaving the screen. "Justice tastes better than coffee," she murmured. "Speak for yourself," Marcus said, grinning. "I like both." Camila stood silently at the window. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She already knew who it was. She let it ring 5 times before answering. "Camila?" His voice was hollow. "Yes, Daniel?" "You destroyed me." "No, Daniel. You destroyed yourself. I just turned on the lights." "You planned it all. Every move." "Yes," she said. 6 months. You should try strategic thinking sometime." There was a pause. Then he asked the one question she had been expecting. "Is there any way back from this?" Camila didn't answer immediately. She walked slowly toward her desk and pressed the speaker button. Everyone in the room now heard his voice. "Camila, I'm begging you. I'll sell shares. I'll issue a public apology. We can fix this. You're brilliant. You always were." Camila looked around the room, the very people he had humiliated, survivors of systemic arrogance. She leaned forward. "You want a way back?" she said slowly. "Let me tell you what I want." She paused for effect. "I want you to sit in front of a camera, look the world in the eye, and say exactly what you said to me when you fired me." Daniel gasped. "Say it," she continued. "Tell them I wasn't a good cultural fit. Tell them I was too assertive for someone like me. Tell them you called me sweetheart in meetings and stole my strategy word for word." I can't." "Then neither can I." She hung up. No tears, no triumph, just justice. The next day, the bomb fully detonated. SEC investigations, federal audits, shareholder lawsuits, government contract terminations. By Friday, Kirkwood Industries was a carcass, picked apart by lawyers, journalists, and regulators. Within 8 months, bankruptcy was filed. Daniel's world unraveled like expensive silk. His Greenwich estate was seized. His offshore accounts were frozen. His wife filed a divorce and took half of what was left. His 2 daughters changed their last name and moved to California. In a quiet apartment in Queens, Daniel Kirkwood, once the architect of high-rises and multi-billion-dollar deals, now typed up his resume on a used laptop from eBay. Seeking junior-level analyst roles in inclusive environments. Back in her office, Camila sat across from a Forbes journalist. The day the Forbes cover hit every newsstand from coast to coast, Genesis Capital's switchboard lit up like Times Square. Media, investors, politicians, Fortune 100 CEOs. Everyone wanted a piece of the storm Camila Santos had stirred, not because she had destroyed a man, but because she had built something stronger in his place. Inside her penthouse office, Camila sat at her desk, running her fingers along the magazine's embossed cover. Her face stared back at her, poised, commanding, unbothered. CEO of the Year. The first black woman to hold the title in 15 years. She wasn't smiling in the photo. She didn't have to. Marcus Chun entered, laptop in hand, his grin barely contained. "You are not going to believe this," he said, chuckling. Camila looked up. "Let me guess, Daniel again?" "Oh, it's Daniel all right," Marcus said, setting his laptop on the table and turning the screen toward her. "He's on LinkedIn now." The video began to play. Daniel, in an ill-fitting blazer, sat in front of a bookshelf that looked suspiciously staged. "Hello, I'm Daniel Kirkwood, and I'm looking for new opportunities in inclusive, progressive work environments." Marcus couldn't contain himself. Inclusive and progressive? This man used to call us a DEI cult. Camila's lips twitched, the ghost of a smile. "There's more," Marcus said. "He applied." Camila arched her eyebrow. "To Genesis?" Marcus nodded. "Sent a message directly to the careers email." He read aloud. "Dear hiring team, I'm very interested in contributing to your outstanding organization. With years of leadership experience, I believe I can add value to Genesis Capital's strategic mission. Sincerely, Daniel Kirkwood." Camila sat back, stunned for a moment. Then, slowly, she shook her head. "The arrogance of that man is indestructible." Patricia Morales, who had just walked in, overheard the last part. Wait, Daniel applied to work here?" Marcus handed her the laptop. She scrolled, eyes wide. "Oh my God, he really thinks we'd let him in the door?" Marcus grinned. "I already drafted the response. Want to hear it?" Camila waved her hand. "Please." Marcus cleared his throat theatrically and read, "Dear Mr. Kirkwood, thank you for your interest in Genesis Capital. Unfortunately, your experience does not align with our core values of integrity, inclusion, and meritocracy. Best of luck in your future endeavors. Sincerely, HR." Patricia broke into laughter. "That's savage!" But Camila didn't laugh. She turned to the window, watching the river glisten under the summer sun. "This isn't about revenge anymore. It never really was." Marcus looked confused. "What do you mean? You took down a Goliath." She turned, her voice calm and resolute. "The real victory isn't that we ruined Daniel's career. It's that we created something no one like him could ever imagine. A company that sees talent in people who've been invisible all their lives." Patricia nodded. 15 of us. Now 15 executives. 15 millionaires, Marcus corrected. And we're not done. In the following weeks, Genesis Capital expanded to Chicago, Atlanta, and London. Tech startups, government agencies, legacy corporations all turned to Camila's firm for consulting. Not because they wanted to look good, but because Genesis delivered. No fluff, no buzzwords, just results. Clients whispered about the firm like legend. A company built by the rejected that now sets the standard. One night, Camila walked by the coffee shop where it had all begun. Same worn tile floor, same overworked cashier. The young man behind the counter spotted her instantly, this time not as a woman fumbling with cards, but as the woman on the magazine cover sitting on the shelf behind him. "Miss Santos," he stammered. It's an honor. Your usual?" She smiled. "Extra shot of espresso, please." He handed it over, hands trembling. "On the house." She tapped her no-limit black card on the reader. Approved. As she sipped, she looked around. There were no suited men behind her offering pity, no sideways glances, no whispered judgments. Just a woman. Powerful, whole, and unstoppable. Back at Genesis, the Genesis Capital headquarters buzzed like a trading floor on Wall Street, but without the chaos. Everything here was deliberate, intelligent, focused. The air was electric with energy, not desperation, not fear, momentum. Camila Santos stood in front of the entire staff, now over 200 strong, in a sleek glass auditorium perched above Manhattan. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped the room, letting in the amber glow of the sunset. Behind her, a massive screen displayed the headline from Forbes, "The $5.80 revenge that toppled a titan." Applause rippled through the audience, but Camila raised her hand gently. The room quieted. "This isn't just about one article," she said, her voice clear and resonant. "This is about a promise we made when this company was born." Silence. "I didn't start Genesis Capital because I wanted revenge. I started it because I was tired of brilliant people being told they weren't the right fit, of talent being ignored, of excellence being passed over for comfort, for sameness, for inherited power." She scanned the room. "And look what we've done." She gestured to the screen as slides began to flicker. $230 million in annual revenue, 9 Fortune 500 clients, 3 global offices, 15 former misfits, now industry leaders, 1 crumbling empire behind them. Now, we're not just proving ourselves anymore. We're setting a new standard. She paused. "This isn't just business. This is justice, delivered through strategy, intelligence, and power we don't have to borrow from anyone." Thunderous applause. Later that night, Camila sat in her office alone. The city blinked below her, traffic like veins pumping light through steel and stone. She leaned back, closed her eyes, and remembered the taste of that $5.80 coffee. Not the bitterness of being underestimated, but the sweetness of having turned it into a kingdom. Her phone buzzed again. Another LinkedIn notification. She almost ignored it, but something made her look. Daniel Kirkwood had posted again. Still seeking new opportunities, ready to learn, open to internships and mentorships in diverse environments. Camila stared for a long time. He hadn't changed. He had just crumbled. She clicked on his profile. No current job, no endorsements. Just a man with nothing left but a resume and regret. She hovered over the message button, then closed the tab. Not out of cruelty, but out of finality. Some people are not meant to be answered. Weeks passed. Genesis was awarded a $300 million government modernization contract, a deal Kirkwood once considered theirs by default. Camila didn't celebrate with champagne. She took the elevator to the roof and stood under the stars. Patricia joined her, wine in hand. "Did you ever imagine this?" Camila didn't look away from the skyline. "I imagined surviving, not soaring." Patricia clinked her glass. "To soaring." They toasted in silence. The next day, Camila gave one last interview. The reporter asked the question everyone had asked in some form or another. "What's the real lesson here?" She thought about it, and then answered. When people try to bury you, it's often because they see your power before you do. And that's fine. Let them. Just make sure you grow back in silence and come back with roots they can't cut and branches that block their light. The journalist blinked. So, what do you call that philosophy? She smiled. The new standard. A year later, Camila visited a public school in the Bronx to deliver a speech to young girls in a business mentorship program. A 12-year-old asked her, "What would you tell someone who feels invisible?" Camila knelt down, took the girl's hand, and said, "You're not invisible. You're just standing in the wrong room. Build your own." And in the crowd, sitting quietly near the back, was the old coffee shop cashier, now a business student. He didn't say anything, but he watched her with wide, respectful eyes and smiled.